Welcome to Asia Inspires. Today's topic is for the men. We're going to be exploring why men need therapy. And this is not to say that women don't need therapy, but because of stigma and some other things that we're going to discuss later, I felt like it was very important for us to have this conversation, especially during Suicide Awareness Month, which is September. But before we get started, of course, please make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell as well so that you can be notified every time that I post a video. I'm Asia. Let's go ahead and get started. Society has long perpetuated this idea that men need to be strong, stoic, and not show vulnerability. And this has led to men not showing emotion as well as ignoring their mental health needs. This article is from the National Library of Medicine, and it's discussing how stigma is a killer of men. Did you know that 6 million men are affected by depression in the United States? And that men die by suicide at a rate of 4 times more than women? Men are also more likely to die due to alcohol-related causes and are 2 to 3 times more likely to misuse drugs. Despite these statistics, it's important for us to remember that mental health concerns do not just affect one gender. Men can experience depression, anxiety, relational issues, just like anybody else. I want you to think about the last time you experienced a mental health concern. And what did you do to cope? Did you turn to more negative coping mechanisms such as drugs, alcohol, or just holding it in? Or did you turn to more positive things such as yoga, meditation, journaling, and talking to someone about it, such as a therapist? The fact that men are more likely to turn to negative coping mechanisms is the reason why we're going to explore some of the reasons that men need therapy. There's no particular order in acknowledging the reasons why men need therapy, but the first one we're going to discuss is that men have a unique burden that they carry. And this is not to discredit the women who feel like that they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, but we're practicing empathy here. Men have this pressure of being the protector and the provider and some other unique things that I know nothing about as a woman, and that you probably as a man have never discussed to other people. And if you did, it might have been other men who told you to man up and stop complaining about it. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for you to go to therapy, because some of these burdens that you were carrying, you weren't meant to carry. And we're going to talk about that in the second point, which is stigma. But having this burden of being a man and making sure that you are staying in the box of what it means to be a man can be so detrimental to your mental health and to your physical health as well. And so, like I said, you probably have not talked about it to other people, talked about the stress and the strain every day that you feel. And that's why therapy is so important. Because if you go to a therapist, you can indeed lighten that load with the therapist. You can discuss things with that person, and you can also learn about some of the things that you are supposed to carry and some things you're not supposed to carry. And your therapist will give you coping mechanisms that can help you to manage your everyday stress. The second issue and reason why you should attend therapy is because of stigma. The article that I mentioned earlier is talking about how stigma is a silent killer because of everything that we believe that men should be, whether it's something that's pushed by media or by society or by men or by women, by our own family. It has made it so difficult for you to just be you, for you to not have to fit into a box of what it means to be a man. And I really want to encourage you, and I'm going to continue to encourage you in this video, to go to therapy so that you can figure out what it means to be you, not to be a man, not to worry about it fitting into a box, but for you to just be you. I've seen in my own family 2- and 3-year-olds who are told to be a man, who are told don't cry, boys don't cry, or don't be a bitch or a punk, or withhold your emotions, be tough. And then we wonder why 2- and 3-, 4-year-olds go from that and pushing away their emotions or learning to shut them off, not caring about other people, because when you seclude yourself and you don't express emotion, you're stopping yourself from creating genuine and true connections with other people, because you need emotions in order to connect with those. So then we wonder why we have 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds who are by themselves, who feel lonely, because you aren't able to be vulnerable enough to express emotions with other people. And so that's why you're having marital issues. And no, this doesn't This might not be the issue, but this could be an issue as to why people are experiencing marital issues or issues in dating or just issues in life. When you shut off your emotions and you don't think about other people, you don't connect with other people, you experience so many issues. And as I mentioned before as well, that we on this earth, humans, we were not meant to just do things on our own. We are social beings. God created us so that we can have community, so that we can connect with others. God didn't just give Eve emotions. He gave Adam emotions as well. He gave men and women emotions. You can see emotions throughout the Bible of people crying, from Job losing everything and crying. He wasn't like, no, I'm gonna be tough even though I just lost all my stuff. I lost my children and I lost all my possessions, but I'm still gonna be tough. No, he cried. And many other people in the Bible as well. But the importance of being able to be vulnerable and us giving men, the space to be vulnerable. Once again, allowing 2 and 3-year-olds to be children. Children are emotional beings. It doesn't have a gender. Just because your son is male doesn't mean that at the age of 2 he can't cry. Teach him coping mechanisms. Teach him how to decipher between when he should cry and when he shouldn't cry. Like maybe he fell and he's crying not because he's physically hurt, but he's crying because he's scared. Okay, well, affirm him. It's okay for you to be scared. That's okay. But if he's physically hurt, don't tell him, man up. I don't want to hear that. Because like I said, now you're teaching him that when he is 30 years old and stress is weighing on him, that he got to hold it all in. And now he feel like his whole world is falling apart because he's unable to release. And I saw something on Facebook the other day that said, we don't cry to solve problems. We cry to release. Crying is a form of release. Allow your children to cry. I'm so tired of hearing people, well, I don't want my son to be a punk. I don't want my son to be a crybaby. What does that even mean? Somebody explain to me, what does it mean for your son to be a crybaby, to be a punk? You mean to tell me that you want your son to be a wall? You want your son to be nonchalant? You want your son to grow up and not know how to connect with other people, not know how to feel, and end up in my therapy chair so that he can talk to me or some other therapist about how he feels the weight of the world on his shoulders and he doesn't know how to feel. He feels all this pressure and he can't release it. Is that what you want? I really want you to think about it. So therapy gives you an opportunity to be vulnerable, to cry, to release, do what it is that you need to do. And before we go into the third reason, I do want to say, for the men out there and even women who are saying, well, my parents taught me to be this way and I turned out fine. Don't worry, I'm going to create a whole video just for you. It's coming. It's in the works, of the myth of I'm just fine. I think that's what I'm going to title it. The myth of I was raised this way and I turned out just fine, because you probably didn't turn out just fine. But like I said, we'll save that for another day. Our third reason is for generational issues, to work through generational issues. This kind of ties in the first point and the second point of stigma, getting rid of stigma, as well as understanding that men have a unique burden that they carry. Your great-grandfather passed down this burden as well as stigma to grandfather, and he passed it down to your father and passed it down to you. And maybe that's not the case in your family, and if that's not, wonderful. I'm so glad that somebody broke that curse. But for those of you who that is not the case, or those of you who it is the case, that it was passed down from generation to generation of, like I said, what it means to be a man. We have this basis of what it means to be a man, but then it kind of changes depending on the generation. And like I said, sometimes it doesn't feel right. It feels like this is not right, but then I also have to live up to the standards of my parents, or live up to the standards of my grandparents, or live up to this idea of what it means to be a man, or what it means to carry on the family last name. And that could be a lot of pressure on you. And then those who didn't have a dad who was physically present or emotionally present, this point is specifically for you as well, because that is a generational burden that you're also having to carry, to not know what it means to have that affection. You know, there are so many men who are longing for affection, attention, love, an emotional connection, or even just a physical presence of their father. And that in itself is enough to go to therapy. to explore that, because some people have identity issues because I don't know who my dad is, or identity issues because I don't know how to be a father, although I want kids, or although I have kids, I don't know how to be a father, or I don't know how to be a husband, or I don't know how to be whatever, because you're expected to learn from your dad who learned from his dad. But what if your great-grandfather passed down the wrong idea to the grandfather, and grandfather passed down the wrong idea to your dad passed on the wrong idea to you? And it's not to blame them, because what they knew then, you know, might have been because of society, might have been the best for them. But when you know better, you do better. And so that's why, another reason why going to therapy is so important, because I want you to do better. I don't want you to carry on that burden of being a man that your father passed down to you, or that your grandfather or your stepfather, whoever raised you, that your mother passed on to you, or that society gave you. I want you to let it go. I want you to go to therapy, and I want you to set that bag down and unpack it and not take it with you. I want you to be able to pass down something beautiful to your son or to your daughter, instead of passing down hurt, passing down pain, passing down nonchalantness. I don't know this word, but being nonchalant and not having emotional connection, because that's not what men do. The fourth reason is because going to therapy can help you with your relationships. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'll say it in multiple other videos as well. We were not created to do life alone. You need to be in relationships. You need to be in relationships. And so going to therapy can help you build better relationships, because when you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you have this idea that you need to fit in a box of what it means to be a man, and you have these generations that are generational issues that are being passed down to you, all of that can not only affect your mental health, but it can also affect the relationships around you. If you find yourself isolated and feeling like nobody cares about you, or you're having to do life alone, therapy is a great way for you to be able to weed out who is really not for you, to weed out, you know, some of the patterns that you may be enduring, because it could be that, once again, a generational thing of, well, this is just the way family is. This is just the way friends are. Friends, family, people who love you, stick their hand out to you, but don't ever give in return. Therapy will be able to help you to decipher between, is this a genuine person in your life, or is this somebody that you need to set a boundary with? And so if you go to therapy, then you can help yourself improve your not only familial and platonic relationships, but also your romantic relationships. I'm sure you've heard this idea that women are more emotional and men are more logical, and that's part of the reason why women and men bump heads a lot in relationships, because men think logically, women think emotionally. Well, therapy can help men to open up that emotional side of themselves so that they can relate to women more, and women as well as women open up their more logical side and relate to men more, so that you kind of meet in the middle, or meet each other where you need to meet, because not always do you need to be logical. Sometimes you really need to tune into that emotional side and allow yourself to feel. So if you find that you are having negative relationships, or that your relationships seem to just fall apart, that is a sign that you probably need to go to therapy, that there is something happening internally, because it's not just the world. You can't tell me that everybody else in the world is wrong. You're the only person that's right. There's something that's going on with you, and that's okay. That is okay. Please know that therapy is a non-judgmental and confidential space for you to be you. It may sound scary. You may have seen things on TV or heard about things, but know that when you find the right therapist, which on a side note, we'll be exploring how to find a therapist in the next video. Once you find the right therapist, it can truly be a breath of fresh air, as long as you are also putting in the work, because therapists are not magical fairies. We can't just wave wands and, you know, make you change. You have to be willing to put in the change, which means you have to be willing to come to therapy and be vulnerable. And I've talked about this in the previous video in which we're talking about therapy in marginalized communities, which I would strongly advise you to honestly go back and watch the video on emotions, watch the video on empathy, watch the video on marginalized communities, because we kind of talk about it being scary, going to therapy being a scary process, and what that entails for the therapist as well as for the client. But if you go back and you watch that, then you'll know that we don't expect for you to come in and just be able to say, oh, I'm ready to just spill everything. We understand that it takes some time for you to build trust with a therapist. That's completely understandable. But it's not a sign of weakness if you go to therapy. Everybody has an issue one way or another. It's either you have an issue and you acknowledge it, or you have an issue and you don't acknowledge it. But there's no such thing as a perfect person. None of us are perfect. So I don't want you to be one of those people who has an issue and pretends like you don't. So go to therapy. Acknowledge you have an issue and go to therapy, because the people who are not getting therapy are walking around like they don't have issues. And going to therapy is not going to solve your issues, because once you solve one issue, of course, other issues are going to come up. That's just life. And that's why sometimes therapy can be a lifelong process, or you know, multiple year-long process, and that's okay too. Don't feel like that there is anything wrong with you going to therapy, or that you're weak, because it takes strength to admit that you have an issue. And last thing that I want to talk about is we as a society need to dismantle this idea of toxic masculinity. And that's going to take both of us doing our part. So giving your friends a safe space to be vulnerable, whether male or female, but particularly because we're talking about men today, giving men the safe space to say, I'm not okay. I'm stressed out. I'm this, I'm depressed, I'm that, I'm whatever. And not laughing or making jokes of it, or gossiping about it, or, you know, spreading anybody's business about it. Because when we do those things, we show them that we're not serious about it. So give your friend, check in on your male friends, check in on your male friends, check in on your significant other, check in on your parents, check in on your family members, just any men in your life. Particularly, of course, I want to encourage you to check on everybody. But once again, we are talking about men in this video. So make sure you are checking on the men, even the strong men that you never thought that they had burdens that they're carrying. Especially check on them, because those are the ones that scare me the most, because they really suppress their feelings, and at some point it explodes. And those are the ones who at home by themselves are crying or are expressing vulnerable emotions because they don't feel like that they have a safe space to express that. So especially check on those people who seem to be strong, you know, because we all have moments of weakness, and that is okay too. I am putting some links in the description box of different resources for men. I really strongly suggest that you familiarize yourself with them, because you never know when you're going to need them, whether it's for yourself or for other people. I also want you to sit back and really just think about, do I have an issue, or what issue do I have? Because once again, we all have issues. What issue do I have, and how can I work on that issue? Because once again, if you take a look at your surrounding relationships, if you take a look at your career, if you take a look at your friendships, you take a look at your relationship with yourself, it can tell you everything that you need to know about how you feel and about your mental health. And then also take a look at the resources that I'm putting in the description box, so that you can know what to do whenever you're ready, which hopefully sooner than later. Whenever you're ready, you can start exploring this idea of going to therapy, even if it's only for a few sessions. I'm not saying it has to be for years and years to come, but getting it out feels so good. I'm trying to tell you, I know from my own experience that getting things out feels great. And then, of course, September is National Suicide Awareness Month. So if you or anybody that you know is experiencing thoughts of suicide, please, please, please take it. Number one, take it serious. But also text or call the number 988 to talk to someone who's trained to be able to help you. Also, of course, seek therapy and find those that you know who are able to help you. Now, of course, everybody is not trained to be able to help calm you down. So that's why it's so important to go to therapy, because therapists are trained in the area. The 988, the National Suicide Awareness Hotline number, is trained. Your best friend or your uncle or your aunt may not be trained, but it's just important that you talk to somebody and that you have multiple people that you could talk to, because what if that person's not available? And plus, you putting your, and that's another reason why some people don't talk to other people, is because they're afraid that if I open up and I dump all this stuff on them, then it's going to pressure them, or it's going to make them uncomfortable, or it's going to affect their mental health. Well, that's another reason why you should go to therapy, because therapists are trained to take on that. They're trained not to take it on, because we don't take it on, but trained to help you with that stuff, not to take it home with us, but we're just trained to be able to make sure that your mental health improves, as well as our mental health stays improved or continues to improve. If you're watching this, I just want to remind you that it is okay for you to ask for help, and that you deserve to live an emotionally healthy as well as fulfilling life. And check out those resources below. And of course, make sure that you like this video. If you learned anything, make sure you send it to a friend, as well as subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified the next time that I post a video, especially the next one, because we're going to be talking about how to find a therapist. Once again, I'm Asia, and until next time.